Hello everyone. Hope you have enjoyed Makar Sankranti and a lot of kite flying. So today we are going to discuss the Kepler's law, and we are going to solve differential equation of orbit as well as the integral equation of orbit. So now let me share the PowerPoint presentation for differential equation of orbit and integral equation of orbit. So we are going to solve these two equations. In our earlier lectures, we derived differential equation of orbit and integral equation of orbit. But in this lecture, we are going to solve these two equations. One is the integral equation of orbit, another is differential equation of orbit. So today's problem or title of the lecture is Kepler's problem, solution of differential and integral equations of orbit. So let me come to the first slide. Yeah. The Kepler's problem is related to inverse square law of force. Solving differential equation of orbit, the inverse square law of force comprises of both gravitational and electrostatic forces. The electrostatic forces may be attractive or repulsive, but gravitational forces are always attractive. So the Kepler's problem is dealing with the two type of forces. And the electrostatic forces are sometimes repulsive, sometimes attractive, but the gravitational is always attractive. Now this can be represented by this particular type of force. F is equal to minus k by r square. And we know the definition that negative gradient of potential is represented as force. So it is minus del V by del R. And again can be represented as by del R, K by R. K is the constant. And we name it as equation number 1. The constant K is chosen in such a way that at infinite distance it vanishes. So we selected the constant K in such a way that it vanishes at infinite distance. If the force is attractive, then K is negative. If force is repulsive, then K is positive. So one can identify by signing the K whether the force is attractive or force is repulsive. So only just noticing the sign of K, one can find out which type of force is prevailing. Now let us consider that force is attractive. So we focus our attention to force attractive. The equation of orbit we have already derived in our earlier lectures, that it is del d2u by d theta square plus u is equal to minus m by L square u square force F by u, F 1 upon u. So force is represented by this particular term. Now assuming that R is equal to 1 upon u, in that case force is represented as minus k by r square, and in terms of u, F is equal to minus k u square. Now let us come to another slide. Now concentrating on the differential equation of orbit. So it is d2u by d theta square plus u is equal to minus m divided by L square u square force minus k u square. Now force is represented as minus k u square. So we have replaced it by k minus u square. So u square is cancelled out, and if you simplify, it is d2u by d theta square plus u equal to mk divided by L square. And we name it as equation number 4. Now we want to change the variables. So we assume over here that y is equal to u minus mk divided by L square. So if you take this u, if you take mk by L square on the left hand side, then it is d2u by d theta square plus u minus mk divided by L square equal to 0. So in that case, we can represent it as a y. So y is equal to u minus mk divided by L square. And let us call it as equation number 5. Now we take a first order differentiation. So it is dy by d theta equal to du by d theta. And there is no variable of theta in the second term, so it becomes 0. So we are taking derivative with respect to theta. Now we take a second order derivative. So it is very simple. It is d2y by d theta square is equal to d2u by d theta square. So we name it as equation number 6. So this is the second order derivative. Now using 6 in equation number 3. So equation number 3 or 4, both are same equation. So we rearrange the term. So d2u by d theta square u minus mk divided by L square equal to 0. So that is rearranging equation number 4. Now we have already mentioned that y is equal to u minus mk divided by L square. So our equation is restructured into d2y by d theta square plus y equal to 0. So this is a simple form of differential equation. Now this differential equation is having a standard solutions in mathematics. So we don't take labor to solve this equation. We take ready-made solution available in mathematics. So the ready-made solution is y is equal to b cos theta minus theta prime. Here b and theta prime are constants of integration. So now let us come to next slide. Now using equation number 5 in equation number 8. So we already know that the y is equal to u minus mk divided by L square. And that can be represented as u is equal to 1 upon r. So we replace u by 1 upon r minus mk divided by L square. And that is from equation number 5. Now using equation number 5 into equation number 8. So 1 minus r minus mk divided by L square equal to b cos theta minus theta prime. Then take mk by L square on the right hand side. So 1 upon r equal to mk divided by L square plus b cos theta minus theta prime. Then let us take mk minus mk divided by L square as a common out of the bracket. So it is 1 upon r equal to mk divided by L square. And if you take it common, then we have to multiply by reverse or inverted one into second term. So it is 1 plus L square divided by mk b cos theta minus theta prime. And ultimately that becomes 1 upon r equal to mk divided by L square 1 plus e cos theta minus theta prime. And e is some constant. And we represent that e is equal to L square divided by mk into b. Now this is the solution of differential equation of orbit, and we call it equation number 9. And e is the constant that is represented by equation number 10. But as per equation number 10, the constant b is unknown. So if you notice equation number 10, L square is a angular momentum, m is mass, k is the constant. So these are the known quantities, but b is unknown. So the other quantities are available and can be measured, but b is unknown quantity, and that is why it is difficult to find out the complete solution of this equation. So we have to evaluate, or we have to know b, and in that case we can use this equation number 9. So this is the limitation of equation number 9. Now let us come to the integral equation of orbit. So in our earlier study we derived time integral, and which shows the relation between t and radial vector r. So time integral in our earlier lectures we derived, that was showing the relation between t and r. But in that case, angle theta was not involved. So here in equation number 8, we show the time integral, but it is without integration sign. So equation number 11 is a time integral. On the left hand side is a t and right hand side is r, but it is not represented with the integration sign because we want to modify it. Here we'll use the same time integral and we'll try to modify it. So now again using the standard integration values. Now we have already derived our earlier lectures that L is angular momentum can be represented as mr square theta dot, and that can be represented as mr square d theta by dt. So we call it as equation number 12. That is the very standard relation for angular momentum L. Now that can be represented as dt equal to mr square divided by L d theta, just rearranging it. So in that case, in the above equation 11, we can put this equation and we can write mr square divided by L d theta equal to dr divided by the big term. Now that can be further represented as m divided by L equal to, we are taking the r square and d theta and dr on the other side. So m divided by L equal to 1 upon r square dr by d theta, and in the denominator the big term. So that is represented as equation number 14. Now come to the next slide. Now we have already assumed earlier that r is equal to 1 upon u. So we can modify du by d theta is d by d theta of 1 upon r, and that is equal to minus 1 upon r square dr by d theta. So in our earlier equation, equation number 14, in this numerator, 1 upon r square dr by d theta can be represented by this term. So it can be represented by equation number 15 minus 1 upon r square dr by d theta. It can be represented by du by d theta. But since there was no minus sign, so we have to represent it by minus du by d theta. So on the left hand side, m divided by L equal to minus du by d theta, in the denominator big term. Now what we do that we try to divide m square in a square root. So we divide by m and goes into the square root. So this m represented over here is divided, and on the right hand side cross multiplication, it goes into the denominator. But when it goes into denominator, if you take into the square root, then we have to make it a square. So the same thing we are going to do it. And this L is multiplied on the cross multiplication on the right hand side. So we take this d theta on the left hand side. So d theta on the left hand side, L goes on to the right hand side. So L minus L du, and this m goes to the denominator, but in a square root, it goes in a square form. So we have made it into a square form, and just the rest of the bracket remains as it is. Now simplifying the denominator. So we'll just simplify. We'll notice that m is 1m is cancelled out with the m square. And similarly, if you open the bracket, then it becomes d theta 2me minus 2mvr minus L square u square. Because again, we have represented 1 upon r square as u square. Then this L in the numerator is brought into the denominator. If we bring it into the denominator and if you take it into the square root, then we have to multiply by 1 upon L square instead of 1 upon L, because we are putting in a square root. So if you put it into a square root, then it becomes 2me 1 upon minus 1 upon L square minus 2mvr 1 upon L square, and again L square u square 1 upon L square, and in a square root term. Now let us come to the next slide. Now if you try to simplify, then d theta is equal to minus du divided by, in a square root, 2me divided by L square plus 2mku by L square minus u square. And here we are writing the potential VR in terms of minus k by r, or V is equal to minus k. So same thing we have put over here. Instead of writing VR, we have put the potential values. Now we are just putting the integration sign. So it is d theta integration. On the right hand side, integration, the big term. Now on the left hand side, if you try to solve the integration, then it becomes theta minus theta prime, because we are putting the limits. And the right hand side, integration as it is. So here The theta prime is a constant of integration and can be defined by the initial conditions and will not necessarily be the same as the initial angle theta 0 at time t equal to 0. Now, how to solve this equation number 16? This is an integration equation, equation number 16. Again, we take over here the help of mathematics. In mathematics, this integral is having a standard form, or it can be compared with the standard form. And the standard form is having a solution. In mathematics, standard integrations are available. These standard integrations are having solutions. So we can take ready-made help of these standard integral equations. Now, both the textbooks, they take help of the standard integrals, because our aim is not to solve this integral equation, but our aim is to obtain the equation of orbit. And for that, we take a standard help of integral equations. So this is a standard integral equation available in mathematics. And we'll take help of this equation to solve equation number 16. So this is the standard integral equation available in mathematics. Again, here where q is equal to b square minus 4ac. Again, we don't know what is a, what is b, and what is c, and how we can represent x or x square, and what is q. Again, we have defined by equation number 18, the q is represented in terms of b square minus 4ac. So now come to the next slide. Now comparing equation 16 with equation 17. Equation 17 is a standard integral equation. One can find that a, b, c, and x. We can find a is equal to 2me divided by L square. B is equal to 2mk divided by L square. C is equal to minus 1 and x equal to u. So we have to find out what is q. So to evaluate q using equation number 19 in equation number 18. So q is equal to b square minus 4ac. And we know that value of b square, we know the value of a and c, and just putting the value of b square minus 4ac, and just we have put over here the values of b square and other terms, and just simplifying the equation, we come to that q is equal to 2mk by L square whole raised to square, in another bracket 1 plus 2el square divided by mk square. Just a simplification. The simplification is shown over here. So this is equation number 20. Now next, coming to the next slide. Now equation number 20 represent the value of the term given in the equation number 20 gives the value of b square, and now we are coming to new equation. Now using equation number 20 in equation number 19 and in equation number 17 of our standard integral. So our standard integral is solved in terms of theta minus theta prime, and is arc cos minus 2mk divided by L square minus 2u, and in the denominator the standard value of q. So let us go back to the standard integral. This is the standard integral. In the standard integral, arc cos means cos inverse. Here q is represented b plus 2cx. Q we have already evaluated, and we have to put the value of b plus 2cx. And arc cos means cos inverse, and in that case again on the d theta side we have represented theta minus theta prime. So theta minus theta prime, this is the left hand side of the integral. So again using these equations, using 20, equation number 19 and equation number 17, the left hand side is evaluated, it is equal to theta minus theta prime. Right hand side is a big integral, and that is evaluated by using a standard mathematical equation. So that is represented as arc cos, and numerator and denominator is q square. And again, we are simplifying that theta prime is taken on the right hand side. So theta is equal to theta prime arc cos, and in this particular equation, we have just multiplied and divided by L square divided by 2mk. So L square divided by 2mk, just we have multiplied this term and the denominator term by L square divided by 2mk. So if you do that, then we'll find out that this minus sign can be taken in the front, so it becomes plus, and L square divided by L square u divided by mk and minus 1. So the first term becomes second term, and we multiply and divide by the same term. So here, if it is multiplied and divided by, so again in a square root, it becomes square. So this term becomes 1. So ultimately 1 plus 2el divided by mk square. So this becomes 1 plus 2el square divided by mk square. So in this particular case, we are dividing and multiplying L square divided by 2mk. And we have to keep in our mind that whenever we multiply this term under the square root, then we have to make it a square. Then again taking the theta on the left hand side, theta prime on the left hand side. So theta minus theta prime is equal to cos inverse. Arc cos is represented as cos inverse, and this particular big term. Now this can be represented as cos theta minus theta prime is equal to again the same term. Now simplifying equation number 21 by cross multiplication. So if we go back, we simplify this term by cross multiplication. So this term is multiplied by cos theta minus theta prime, and this term remains as it is. So this square root term is multiplying to cos theta minus theta prime. So let us come to the next slide. So L square u divided by mk minus 1 is equal to the square root 1 plus 2el square divided by mk square. Square root is over cos theta minus theta prime. Then L square u divided by mk is equal to, taking 1 on the right hand side, 1 plus under root term cos theta minus theta prime. Then we can write it for u. So if we write for u, the other term goes on the right hand side. So it is mk divided by L square in a bracket 1 plus the square root term cos theta minus theta prime. And this term can be represented as that u is equal to 1 upon r, u is equal to 1 upon r equal to mk divided by L square 1 plus under root 1 plus 2el square divided by mk square. Square root is over cos theta minus theta prime. So equation number 9 and equation number 22 are the same equations. Equation 9 was obtained by using differential equation of orbit, and equation 22 is obtained by integral equation of orbit. So both equations are similar equations and they give same type of solution. Now this solution of integral equation of orbit can be represented as 1 upon r c 1 plus e cos theta minus theta prime. And if e is equal to 0, it can be represented as minus mk square divided by 2l square minus mk square divided by 2l square. So this can be represented by like this. Now where e is equal to under root 1 plus 2el square divided by mk square, and value of c is equal to mk divided by l square. So if you compare this equation, then this equation is compared with equation number 9. We can know that very well. If you compare equation number 10, the value of E is shown in terms of unknown constant B. We have already noticed that in equation number 10, the E was represented in terms of some constants, but constant B was unknown. But in equation number 24, this equation, the value of E is given in terms of known or measurable quantities, like E is energy, L is angular momentum, M is mass, and k is the constant. Therefore, integral equation of orbit is superior than differential equation of orbit in the present case. So, in comparing the two type of solutions, one is the differential equation of orbit solution, another is the solution of integral equation of orbit. But integral equation of orbit gives superior solution than the differential equation of orbit, and the reason we have just now discussed. Now we come to what is the geometrical shape of the solution of orbit equation. We have obtained the solution, and that solution is represented in terms of equation 23. But what type of geometrical shape it represents? How the different equations of orbit or how different shapes of orbit are derived. So this is the general equation of cone with one focus at the origin, and E is the eccentricity of the conic section. So this is nothing but the equation of cone, and E is the eccentricity of the conic section. So you are taking the cross section of cone in different directions. Now it is represented over here. This is the cone, and this cone is represented by this equation. And E is the eccentricity that represents the different conic sections. So if you take a section of cone like this, then it gives the circle. If you take a cross section of cone slightly inclined, then it gives ellipse. If you take a conic section like this, it gives a parabola. And if you take a conic section like this, then it gives hyperbola. So the nature of orbit depends on the magnitude of eccentricity E and energy E as follows. So both E's are very important. One is a small e, another is a capital E. Capital E represents energy, small e represents the eccentricity. So the first condition gives E greater than 1 and energy is greater than 0, then it is hyperbola. If an eccentricity is equal to 1 and energy is equal to 0, then it gives a parabola. Then if eccentricity is less than 1 and E is less than 0, then it gives ellipse. And this is giving a bound orbit, because in bound orbit, the energy is represented in a negative form. And when eccentricity is 0 and energy is exactly equal to minus 2mk square divided by 2n square, then it gives a circular orbit. So from the single equation, by taking a different cross sections, then we can obtain different shapes of orbit. So in the diagram, the nature of the cone is given and cross sections are taken in different directions. They are giving under different conditions, different type of orbits. Now let us come to the next slide. Now we come to the circular orbit condition. For circular orbit, the kinetic energy T and potential energy V are constant in time virial theorem. We have already represented virial theorem. And hence, using the Clausius of virial theorem and considering the force in terms of potential, means negative gradient of potential, then we can write in terms of virial that T is equal to 1/2 potential energy V. And that is a virial Clausius. So total energy is equal to kinetic energy plus potential energy. So it is represented as T plus V. Then if we put T is equal to 1/2 V, so 1/2 V with a negative sign because it is a Clausius of virial, then 1 V is positive. So we obtain E is equal to 1/2 V. And using virial theorem in terms of average, time average, and considering negative sign of constant K for attractive central potential. So in that case, we can write using the Bertrand's theorem, because as per the Bertrand's theorem, equilibrium between central force and effective force is considered. In Bertrand's theorem, we have obtained this relation. So central force is represented as minus K divided by R0 square. And effective force is represented as minus L square divided by mr0 cube. And if we simplify, then it becomes r0 equal to L square divided by mk. So we represent it by equation number 26. Using 26, using 25 for R0, so using 25 for R0, then we can, using this in equation number 25, equation number 26, then we can write E equal to minus mk square divided by 2L square, because in equation, this equation, we have represented R0 by equation number 26. So using equation number 25 and equation number 26, we can obtain E is equal to minus mk square divided by 2L square. So here we have used two different type of equations to obtain equation number 24, that is the circularity condition. And we have used Poiseuille theorem, we have used Bertrand theorem, and we obtained this relation. Now, dependence of semi-major axis on ellipse on energy. So dependence of semi-major axis of ellipse on energy. So this is a very important relation. In the elliptical orbit, it can be shown that the semi-major axis depends only on the energy. This theorem is also important in Bohr theory of atom, because in Bohr theory, we are considering different shape of orbit, elliptical orbit. For eccentricity less than 1, the maximum and minimum values of R by equation number 23 of conic section for two apsidal distances on semi-major axis are as follows. So this is the elliptical orbit. This is the semi-minor axis and semi-major axis represented here. And these are the two apsidal distances. So two corner points are the apsidal distances. So semi-major axis is 1/2 of the apsidal distances. So the equation of cone is 1 upon r equal to c, 1 plus e eccentricity cos theta minus theta prime. That is equation number 23. We are rewriting it. We are rewriting it for two different conditions. One is theta minus theta prime is 0. Another is theta minus theta prime pi, two full values. So it can be represented by 1 upon r1 c 1 plus e, because if it is 0, cos theta is 1. And for the another condition, theta minus theta prime is equal to pi. So it is 1 upon r c 1 upon 1 minus e. So the condition is different for that. So by definition, the semi-major axes are half of the sum of the two apsidal distances 1 upon r1 plus r2. So if you consider this is the semi-major axis, this is the origin, one distance is r1, another distance is r2. So summation of r1 and r2 gives the semi-major axis. And if you divide by 2, then it is the exactly equal to semi-major axis. If focus is somewhere different than the origin, then this relation also holds true. So semi-major axis A is equal to R1 plus R2 divided by 2. And we have already obtained from equation 27 and equation 22, 1 upon R1 and 1 upon R2. So R1 plus R2 divided by 2 is equal to 1 upon 2 in bracket 1 divided by C, 1 plus E plus 1 divided by C, 1 minus E. And if you try to simplify this equation, then it equals to 1 divided by C, 1 minus E square. Let us call it equation number 29. Now, we know that eccentricity E is represented by equation 24 as E is equal to under root 1 plus 2EL square divided by MK square. Now, modifying this equation and squaring it. So, if you square it, E square is equal to 1 plus 2EL square divided by MK square. Then modifying it, 1 minus E square is equal to minus 2EL square divided by MK square. We know that C is equal to MK divided by L square by equation number 25. So now using 25 and equation 30 in equation 29. So in equation 29 is equal to A is equal to 1 divided by C 1 minus E whole square equal to L square divided by MK minus mk square divided by 2En square. And if you try to cancel out the numerator and denominator, ultimately we'll find out that A is equal to minus k divided by 2E. So equation number 31 represent that A is equal to minus k divided by 2E. So this is nothing but what is asked and what is asked as a theorem. So the energy depends only on k and semi-major axis of the ellipse. So this energy E depends on semi-major axis nk. So energy depends only on these two quantities, then no other quantities than these two quantities. So whatever theorem says that we have proved. I suggest for the further reading, one can refer the classical mechanics by Goldstein. Now, what is the importance of equations of orbit? So there are two different cases. The circular and elliptical orbits are closed orbits. So these are shown by the circular and elliptical orbits. Parabolic and hyperbolic orbits are the trajectories which are open type. So the parabolic and hyperbolic orbits are open type of orbits. So these are the parabolic and hyperbolic orbit. Now, beauty of these equations are, if you change the eccentricity condition and if you change the energy conditions, you can convert the circular orbit into the elliptical orbit into the parabolic orbit, and particularly into the hyperbolic orbit. So this can be achieved very easily by changing eccentricity and the energy values. So we know that whenever any spacecraft is launched, so first it is moving in a circular orbit, then goes into the elliptical orbit, then parabolic orbit, and then hyperbolic orbit. So if it is a Chandrayaan, so first it is in a circular orbit, then elliptical orbit, parabolic orbit, then hyperbolic orbit, then goes straight towards the moon. So this is a very important thing, how to change the orbit by changing the eccentricity and energy. Now here are the examples: the elliptical orbit of satellite, and then circular orbit of satellite. So geostationary orbit is a circular orbit. So satellite is moving in a circular orbit. And these are the elliptical orbit or hyperbolic orbit. So elliptical orbits are of different planets, and hyperbolic orbit is of Oumuamua, that is a comet, and the trajectory of Oumuamua comet is shown in terms of hyperbolic orbit. Now, simple experiment can be done at your home. These different type of orbits can be achieved by simple torch. Now, shine the torch just vertically on the wall. So you will have a circular impression or circular part illuminated on the wall. So that is shown over here. So that is showing a circular orbit, because we have assumed that our torch is spreading light in a conical manner. In a conical manner, our torch is shining or spreading light. And if you keep torch slightly inclined, then you will find these are the hyperbolic orbit, these are the parabolic orbit, and again, by changing the angle, you will get circular as well as the elliptical orbit. So this is a very simple experiment. So simple experiment can be done by normal torch. Project the beam on wall or screen at different angles, giving different shapes. Actually, the beam of torch is in conical shape, and the wall produces different sections of cone, giving various shapes. So this is a very simple experiment we can do even at home. Now, thank you very much for patient hearing. This is a cute kitten or a small baby cat. This is a cute kitten in my garden. Again, small cute kitten. And this is my picture in the department office. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for patient hearing. Thank you so much.